Had a productive week in the bye week. Got a lot of good work in on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. For us as coaches, during the bye week, just such a different week overall for us to get a jump in football, but also to get a jump in recruiting. With the 2 bye weeks this year, we really had a plan going into that first week, and then I thought we equaled that or surpassed it here the last week. What we were able to do as a staff, recruiting in-state, out-of-state, across the country. As our class begins to grow in this 22 class, really makes it harder on the back end to figure out exactly, where we stand. Again, this year being a little bit different because going into our last 2 regular season games, you got guys that may or may not want to be viewed as a senior moving forward. Obviously, there's a small number of guys that are 6-year players that'll move on regardless, but some ongoing conversations with other guys. So the bye week kind of gave a nice opportunity for that to happen. From a health standpoint, really, the only Jamal Woods would be the only guy that is really in question for this coming weekend. Really, the last 4 or 5 games, been very happy with the way that we've been able to stay healthy. Competed very physical games, but been able to stay pretty healthy. I think it's a good sign of just the overall effect of our out of season, our winter conditioning, our fall conditioning, our summer conditioning. The effect that Tank Wright and his staff has had on our program has been monumental. So good work got good work Sunday night. We actually came back and got some good work Sunday night outside. Today they have the day off. Tomorrow we'll get good work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Really just wanted to go Zoom this week as been a little bit of surge around our campus with COVID. Had a desire just to kind of last 2 weeks, not only COVID precautions, but we just had a lot of guys the last 2 weeks, just a lot of colds, different ailments from the change in weather and to get our guys ready. So appreciate everybody. I know I didn't get a chance to buy you lunch today, so I apologize for that, but looking forward to getting on the road and playing in Iowa City. Obviously a place I know a lot about, but really doesn't change our game plan in any way. It's just about the players that are on the field, right? Doesn't matter what's happened in years past. It's about this year's team. Our guys love to play on the road. They have a kind of a mentality to them. I think they play very well. So excited to see this group go to Iowa City and see what can happen. So open it up for questions.
Coach, with Coach Walters, is the contract extension, did you have some concerns that other schools would come in and try to poach him away from you?
Bob, great question. It really was nothing driven out of more than really when I began to talk to Josh, going back to last December to where we are today, just about the support and the commitment from the university to let us put together a staff. I think my first numbers that I was given from a staff compensation standpoint was one that I was very pleased with. But I did say, as I know in this profession, I've had good coaches that have been poached away from me, and wanted to know if that support would be there. And Josh was very upfront about that. And then obviously this proof was in the pudding. I think defensively, what Ryan, our defensive staff overall, our defensive players have been able to accomplish this year has been pretty noticeable. And I'm not oblivious to the fact that if I hadn't heard from him, I would, right? So it was just some proactive action by Josh, and give a lot of thank you to the University of Illinois in general, just the support that they gave, the way Josh was able to go through this. I had some preliminary conversations with Josh going back to our first bye week, and before that even, he kind of took it and ran, and then we made some proposals to Ryan and his family and his people right after the Minnesota game, and obviously to come up with that announcement yesterday was awesome for a variety of different levels. But very excited for Ryan and his future, and love working with him on a daily basis.
One more, head coach, have you had $1 million assistant coach on any of your staffs before?
$1 million? No, I don't think so. Close, but no. I did give Ryan a little bit of heat. I told him, I had when I was a defense coordinator, or as a co-coordinator and coordinator, I had #1 defense in the country, and I think the most I made was 185. And in my first year as a head coach, I made $750,000 and went 12-1. So that wasn't that long ago. I'll have you know too. That was 13 years ago. So the price of doing good business has gone up dramatically.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, Brett, just to be clear, with the surge of COVID on campus, are you guys experiencing any COVID issues within your program?
Really, I think the first one, if I'm not mistaken, Joey, was maybe I don't know if it was after I don't know if it was after Penn State or after Rutgers. I know that we had a support staff member test positive, and then a student manager in that area tested positive as well. So really just being aware and on campus, have seen what's happened to other sports, right? Like obviously that's been well documented. So really haven't had any flaring up issues as of yet here. Definitely some guys. I actually got tested yesterday. I was out on the road all week last week, so I got my booster last week, and we were 100% vaccinated before the season, but as you all know, right, there's other complications that have arisen now to guys that have been vaccinated. So as far as student athletes, up to my knowledge, we've only had one the entire year, so it wasn't anybody who was into too deep right at the time, so it wasn't an issue. But as of right now, it's just strictly precautionary.
And then I wanted to ask you, Ryan and you have both credited this defensive staff for really turning this thing around, all of everybody. How did you know when you put this together that it was going to work as seamlessly as it has? Just because there's guys with, pretty high level experience in the room, and how did you kind of get a sense it was all going to mesh?
Yeah, I'd been out of the head coaching role for 3 years, so I'd kind of put together a list of names and things. And then when I got the job, you began to hear from different people, some high profile names, some names I was interested in, some that I wasn't. Actually, Jeremy and I kind of met for the first time on this very subject where, even people that I've been associated with in the past that were rumored, I never really even talked to. I really brought three people on campus. Ryan was actually my first, and he just lasted an impression in me that made me go to the only guy that I offered the job. And again, I'd known him indirectly through some people. I might have met him once or twice on the road or in a professional environment on game day or whatever, just competing against him, but had never spent much time. But I had this formula. I would bring a coach in. I would basically have him here for a 48-hour window where I would sit down, get to know him a little bit, then talk about teaching philosophies, then talk about coaching, and then kind of just progress through that. And I just felt the way Ryan's demeanor was, he was really very similar to me in certain concepts and thoughts, but he was also completely different to me in personality, and not totally different, but he's just a different kind of person. Very, very easy to get along with, very composed. I thought he'd be a great demeanor. And then I kind of already knew the direction I was going to go. I was very interested in JMO, Aaron Henry, Andy Boo, and Kevin Kane. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get them all, but I did have the conception that if I could get my hands on some guys that I knew they'd work well with Ryan.
Thanks, Brett. I'll send my lunch receipt your way.
All right. Appreciate it.
Hey, Coach, I kind of wanted to ask about Coach Walters as well. Obviously, on Twitter yesterday, a few players were tweeting their congratulations to him. They seem to really have connected well with him. What is it about his personality that you think the players have connected well with?
I would say number one thing for sure is just his genuineness. I can't tell you how much that means to today's youth, right? Like kids usually have been deceived or lied to or manipulated really at different times during their life. So I think in college, especially when they're on their own for the first time, even a kid, that's from right down the road here in Champaign, they're coming into a new environment, a new program, a new way of doing things, a new scheme. And I think the genuineness of Ryan's approach to each one of those players, he's going to be honest, he's going to be real. He's going to, work very hard to give them the best plan possible and put them in the best position possible. And I think they feel that and gravitate. Now, all the other things, he's got great demeanor. He's fun. He's got energy. He backs up what he preaches. I give all of our defensive coaches a little bit of heat. They like to wear their little Jordans and their little Lululemon pants. So he's kind of got the look that they go to. I just think he checks the box, and I think, to be quite honest, the way that whole staff interacts and works together really gives me a lot of confidence in the sum of the whole parts. And I think Ryan, even when we began to talk about his contract extension, the first thing he would mention is the ability that the defensive staff gives him to do what he does. He's made reference several times that it's the best staff that he's been involved with. that gives him the support during the course of the week to make great calls on game day. And I think that humility goes a long way with everybody.
Yeah, and then to follow up on him and I guess it working so well on that side of the ball. And I don't like to talk about the past before you got here, but the defense really struggled. So to see him make it work so well this year, was there a moment in the offseason or training camp where you're like, okay, this is special. This is what he's doing is going to really work?
It was probably during the moments of adversity. I think it's easy to do things well when you're playing well, right? It's really hard to do things under faith when it's not going great around you. So I think I look back at maybe at times during the early fall when maybe it wasn't going great and the focus that he had, but also the focus the players had on him. And then really the aha moment for me literally was I had talked to him about in the spring about whether he wanted to be up or down. And I had always been down during my career as a coordinator. I thought because it just gave me a chance to see the players' eyes. I know I bonded well with them. I reacted emotionally with them very, very well. I knew how to take them to the highs and get them out of the lows. And I felt those same things with Ryan. One of the great parts about working with Ryan is I've had a lot of sidebar conversations with just him about becoming, a really good coordinator, but also taking that next step. There's no doubt in my mind he'll be a head coach at some point in his career. And I've been trying to kind of feed him little things along the way that will let him enable to be better at that and be prepared when that moment comes. So when he came down on the field and the immediate impact he had on that game, I was actually literally in my notes to talk to him on that Sunday, and he came into my office. He goes, "Hey, I think I want to go down," and that just made a moment in my mind where I'm like, I think like he thinks like I think. This is a really good thing, and obviously the proof has been in the pudding.
And then if I could get one more quick one, you mentioned the defensive staff wearing their Lululemon pants and their Jordans on game days. Do you think that's something that the players have been able to just connect with just because there's not a huge age difference between a lot of those people and their style and their music and whatever kind of things they have interest in?
Yeah, so a great point, right? I think that's the way that people gravitate to in their minds, right? But Ryan Walters, 20 years from now, he may be still wearing Lulus and Jordans, but he may not be that age bracket that everybody thinks it gravitates to. Age is just a number, right? Like so. Obviously, I wear Nike issue and kind of boring orange sneakers, right? But like my ability to connect with our players is no different from when I was 31 that I'm now 51. Like that element is definitely real. And I think people pay way too much attention. It's the content of the message. I do think that actually probably me giving those guys a little more grief than anything. But I think our players identify with the personality of our defensive coaches really, really well. And that shows in the way they play.
Thanks, Coach. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Hi, Bret. What are your thoughts about this Saturday's football game against Iowa, just in the matchup? And then, of course, there is your connections to the program.
Yeah, Scott, being upfront and honest, like I tell our guys, like I've known this day was coming, right? Just like somewhat similar to, not the same when we were going to play Wisconsin. You can't, and I don't want players or our coaches to ever shy away from their past and their history. I've always said, I've never met a successful man who isn't proud of where he came from, right? And I think that carries forward in this moment for me just as much as anything. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Kirk. He gave me a job. Phil Parker, the defense coordinator, I were as close gets on that first staff when we were together. Has had a tremendous influence on my coaching career overall. Really over a period of decades, right? And that's in itself what it is. That doesn't have any effect on Saturday. Saturday is about, this year's football team at the University of Illinois against this year's football team at the University of Iowa. It's in Iowa City, Iowa. It's at Kinnick Stadium. There's not one play from last week's game for them that's going to carry forward into this game. There's not one play from our season this year that's going to carry forward into this program. It's about the 11 on 11, every play on Saturday that matters. And that's not just coach speak. That's just what it is. I'm very excited for this group. It's been pointed out to me that we've lost 7 straight, right? Like I don't need to throw that in our players' face. They've actually said it to me, right? Like I know what this means to these players, and it's because of everything other than the fact about me, right? I'm just the newest equation into this thing. It's a nice little side piece, but that's nothing what this story's about.
And then this is the time of year when you start to hear chatter, and I have no idea how much of a possibility it is, but you hear talk of 5-win teams being invited into bowl games. Do you have, at least in concept, any thoughts on that, or is that for later?
You know, again, great story, great concept from the outside world, but this week's game is about this week's game, and it's not because of potential bowl eligibility. It's because it's an opportunity for us to play a Big Ten West opponent, to a team that's in contention for the Big Ten West title, for us to play a team that we haven't beat in 7 years, for us to play a team that is going to be on our record or on our schedule every year, year in and year out. This is a measuring stick for us, right? This is nothing to do with about anything in the future or what's behind us. What I want to know is I want to know what the University of Illinois football team in week 11 or game 11 of the 2021 season, I want to know where we're at. And that's the challenge we've had to our guys every week. And it's nothing that's going to change as we move forward, because, you know, to get to next week is just a matter of calendar days. What we want to do is get to this opportunity on Saturday and see what happens.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Bret, obviously when Josh hired you and you guys talked about sustained success and everything you'd learned in your stops before of programs you can emulate, you know, kind of model yourself after. And Iowa is sustained success. It feels like every team is similar, right? And then every year they kind of have a good team. What did you learn under Hayden in your 1 year with Kirk that has led to this for Iowa?
Yeah, so I played under Hayden from 88 to 92. Then I GA'd for him for a year, 2 years, worked for him for a couple of years. And then I actually worked for Kirk for 3 years. And I think that the common element that I learned from both of them was to be who they are, right? Coach Ferentz was completely different than Coach Fry, but they're very similar in a lot of different ways. I remember that first year, I believe we went 1-10. The only team we beat, I believe, was Northern Illinois. And then that next year we won 3 games. And then my third year with him, my final year at the University of Iowa, we won, I believe, 6 to get bowl eligible, and then won 7 to be in the bowl game. We beat Texas Tech, and then I left for Kansas State. And I remember Kirk was adamant about never skipping a step to get to where we want to be. He was adamant about doing it and building the foundation to build it the right way for a long time. And that's definitely carried forward in my thinking here. There's little things I do every day that I'm like, oh, that's such a Hayden Fry thing right there. Like, I know it, but no one else really knows it. Nobody in my building knows it. No one in my staff meeting knows it. I remember having a initial conversation with Kirk when I didn't have a job, and he offered me an opportunity to stay on the staff, and I kind of actually gave him a reason why not to hire me. I don't know how smart that was, but that's how I kind of approached it. And thankfully, he didn't take me up on it. Kept me in the loop, and learned a lot of really good football from him. So yeah, but then it kind of manifested as I grew. Then I went to Kansas State, and I was with Bill Snyder, and I realized a lot of the same things I had heard from Hayden, from Kirk, Coach Snyder was doing. And then I go to the University of Wisconsin, and I coach under Barry Alvarez, who was a part of all of it with all of them. And I began to see how it goes. And then crazy how the world works, right? To go to New England and be under Coach Belichick and realize a lot of things that I'd learned under Kirk were things that Coach Ferentz had learned under Bill, right? So just so many connect the dots moments in your coaching career, but ones that I know have a great effect and hopefully are going to build us to a point of having a lot of success, hopefully here in the future, very, very short fashion.
You mentioned how recruiting was probably even better this weekend for you guys on the off week. How much does those 2 wins impact that? And what's kind of this last month like for you guys, staff, as you kind of wrap up this class? Yeah,
I was kind of, for me, I was in kind of one region of the country on Sunday and Monday, and then in the other part of the week on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was a little bit in a different area of the region, but the reception was still equally great. Like, people were just very, very positive. When we got back in the meeting rooms on Sunday, we had I went around and asked every coach how it was on the road, what was the reception, what was the perception of our program, and just so many positives, right? Just so many really, really good things. And I said, well, congratulations, because all that's behind us, right? Like, let's get ready to play Iowa, and let's get ready to play at a high level. Because I think people have human nature too much into their DNA, right? They begin to feel good about things. Like those 2 wins on the road mean nothing, right? I mean, they're good. They're great things to reference and talk about, but for us and what we need to do this week, they mean nothing. There's not one stat that's going to carry forward to help us this week other than the experience itself. So, yeah, it's been very, very positive, and really all levels, right? I was in high schools, I was in junior colleges, I was in conversations with kids that are in transfer portals. Like I literally have covered the gamut, and everything's been positive. So that's good. But it's nowhere where we want to be.
Thanks, Bret.
Bret, you had said previously you weren't going to talk about a bowl game. Is that in conversation now in the building, or is that still something you're not talking about?
No, we just really don't. I think during the bye week, I made reference, like, hey, everybody may want to talk about what can happen at the end of 2 weeks, but all I want you to know is the only thing that matters is next week. So I know they're probably having the outside world chatter about it, right, and everything that goes into it, but it really it's complete nonsense to speak of it or talk about it, because it's not humanly possible until you play this week. So I get it. I understand why there's a dialogue, but the reality of the matter is, I met specifically with my staff this morning. We don't practice today, so it's a Monday. Usually they can kind of divvy up their world on different avenues, but I laid out a plan. I told them what we wanted to work on and what we needed to focus on, and that was the University of Iowa.
What makes them so good and what they do defensively?
It's just ingrained in what they have done for a long time. I was there over 20 years ago, and the reality of what they are doing now is in core a lot of the same things. They just do it extremely well. The players are very versed. They know what they're doing. They know the answers to the equation or to the problem a lot of times before they get to the sideline. I think their linebackers and secondary, I think in particular 31 is an extremely intelligent, focused, good player who plays at a high level because he just knows exactly what he's doing and why he's doing it. Their 2 edge players are phenomenal. I have a couple of defensive backs that really do a great job of controlling the game. Phil Parker, their D coordinator, is a guy I've had great respect for since the day I met him. Seth Wallace, their defensive line coaches. I just have a lot of respect for everything that they do defensively, because they're really good at what they do. They know their strengths and they minimize their weaknesses, and they play extremely hard.
Thanks, Bret.
Hey, Bret, I just got one quick one. Offensively, it seems like Big Ten West kind of team. What are the challenges of Iowa there?
I was very interested to watch the game Saturday. To be honest, I came back off the road recruiting wise, got here about 12:30, went over and tested. I was in my office, watched the first half, basically the first half and a little bit of the third, the Minnesota game, and I wanted to see what with the quarterback, who was in there, what that was going to do, if it mattered or if it changed. Kind of thought going into it that would be more of the same of what they did. Now he's maybe a little bit different athlete than the other quarterback, but they've used him a little bit more on the edges, moving him out of the box on some throw games. Their running backs are very efficient. I thought the game Saturday was a little bit more of the same of what I've seen for years out of them. Their center, in my opinion, is probably one of the most complete centers I've ever witnessed and seen. Very athletic. What he's able to do from a football standpoint fundamentally is really, really high level, as well across the board. Their tight end, Laporte, is a very, very gifted football player. Again, I think it's just interesting, right? Like, we're playing Iowa. Last week we played Minnesota. We played Purdue. We played obviously Rutgers. There wasn't so much there as far as, but when I go to all these teams, there's Illinois players on every one of these rosters that are at the highest level of their success. And Iowa is no exception, right? They've done a really good job of recruiting in this state. So the message we've said from day one about controlling the state and being able to keep the players we want here at home. I know we're not going to bat 1,000%, but we sure as hell better try, because if they're from Illinois and they've been in these programs that know how to play good football, and it means a lot to them, they've been really successful to that point. So again, there's more players on that roster that I wish were here at the University of Illinois. I'm not saying anything about it. I just know we can do a really good job of recruiting our players better stay in state here and how much that can affect our program in the future. So that's going to be another key part of this matchup on Saturday.
Thanks.